I got to tell you, your podcast is amazing. Being
Thank
able to
you.
get on here, you're a breath of energy, and what
Oh,
you're up to in the world really does speak to. I'm honored to be on the show. You're
thank
just
you.
amazing in the work that you're doing, and I just
Thank
think
you.
more and more people got to see it.
Welcome to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by my man, Audley Stevenson, the Odd Man. He'll unpack wisdom and insights from a cross-section of top quality performers in business, media, sports, entertainment, and lifestyle to uncover key elements to help you live your best audacious life ever. So without further ado, here is the Odd Man.
Greetings and salutations, folks. It's Audley Stevenson back for another edition of the most audacious podcast the internet has to offer. You're checking out the Audacious Living Podcast, and I appreciate you for being here as we continue our ongoing goal of helping our listeners live their best audacious lives ever. As always, I encourage you to follow us on our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook under the handle The Audacious Pod. Or if you're watching this episode on YouTube, then you know that bell down below in the corner there. You tap that ding, 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 and you're subscribed to all great things audacious related. Now, I'm super excited to be sharing another episode of the Audacious Living Podcast with you, and you're probably wondering why I'm coming to you today from in front of a construction zone here. And it's a perfectly reasonable question, and listen, I'd probably be wondering the exact same thing if I was watching this. This is really the story. I've got Anthony Amunategui joining me on this episode of the podcast, and considering the fact that Anthony is the founder of a CDO Group, which is a national commercial construction firm that's built over 1 million square feet of retail space and working with some of the largest brands in the world, it just made sense. Anthony is a great guy. He's got a true passion for finding out what makes other people successful in business and in life. And he's, just like I said, he's all around great guy. He's gracious with his time, and he really has a lot of good insights to offer and great to talk to you. And I'm guaranteeing you, you will enjoy this conversation. So without any further ado, here's my chat with Anthony Amunategui. Enjoy. Hey, Anthony, thank you for joining me here on the Audacious Living Podcast. Such a pleasure, man. Thank you for spending the time like this.
I got to tell you, your podcast is amazing. Being able to get on here, you're a breath of energy, and what you're up to in the world really does speak to. I'm honored to be on the show. You're amazing in the work that you're doing, and I just think more and more people got to see it.
Thank you. I do appreciate that. When I remember starting this podcast, I very much, it's so funny, Anthony, you go into something and you want to give, but you end up getting more back than you ever thought imaginable. And that's the blessing of this. And really what I wanted to be able to give my energy, give them, that what I know I can offer, but also give people a reason to understand the importance of being audacious in their actions and what that means and the impact that can have on others. And it's been an incredible ride. It's been fantastic. I get to meet really amazing people like yourself. So again, I'm the one that's blessed.
No, it's fun. It's something about stepping out. People have, look, I have lots of grace for people right now in this now time of the world. It's never been better, right? I mean, we have so much opportunity. It's just such an overwhelmingly beautiful time to be on the planet. And at the same time, I look at people and have grace for them because they're all drinking off a fire hose. There's just such a overwhelming to so many of my friends and so many people that I know that are just walking around life just overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Not being able to see it, and they can't see that just how blessed we are, in this now time and the gifts that we have. And sometimes it's overwhelming for people.
I agree with you. And I think that's where the importance of even almost dialing it back a little bit, Anthony, and kind of getting back to who you are as a starting point, because then you can figure out where you slot, what makes the most sense for you. There's so much that's available to us. We can't have it all, right? Like you said, the fire hose, drinking fire, we just can't. So it's what does Audley Stevenson need for himself in this moment. And once I figure that out, like, then I know my direction and what my path is. And I think as a serial entrepreneur, I'm sure you've probably had to face a little bit of that too, in terms of figuring out what your next steps are, right?
Well, oddly, what's funny about that is I've never ever been able to figure out what's in front of me. I sit here and I try to get the crystal ball out. I try to figure
Yep.
out what I'm going to do in the future, what I want to be when I grow up.
Right.
And the truth is, I think I figured out more what I don't want to be. Right.
Mm,
I figured out the places where I don't want to go. And I've kind of more peeled away the Anthony's that I didn't serve me. Right.
right.
There was a young Anthony who grew up in a poor neighborhood, who had lots of, doubt. And, oftentimes I say to men, and, we were, think about this, for thousands of years, we were very tribal. Right.
Right.
We walked with elders. We had elders who guided us.
Right.
People who said, Anthony, maybe you and I would be part of a hunting group. We'd be part of an elder who said, walk like this, throw a spear like this, look like this, skin like this,
Right.
don't step on the stand downwind. Here's how that, how to walk and talk. And you had feedback. Today, so much of our feedback doesn't come from others or our elders. It comes from Facebook likes and Instagram and video games. I already got another level. That's my knowledge. I'm doing well. Right. And sometimes we're missing that part that really says, hey, you can be messy and still it's okay. It's okay that you don't have it all figured out, that life is a practice, that practicing, and then that's how you get there. And even when you're great at it, look, I run multiple companies, thousands of people. I mean, there are, 9 separate companies that I run, and some of them are international. And you literally look at it and go, how do you do that? Well, there are days when I wake up and still feel like a fraud. And knowing that no matter who you're looking at, no matter who they are, there's that imposter syndrome that I put my pants on just like the guy who's next to me. That's the truth about where we're at as humans. And there's days where I feel like a genius, and there are days where I feel like I'm broken, and all of that in between is part of being a human.
I'm so glad that you touched on the realities of humans, because we're all experiencing the same sort of feeling, and that no one is above that. As much as we want to think that there's somewhere above it, it's what doesn't come to the forefront, what doesn't come to, on social media, the practices. You talk about, we're all practice. Everyone practices. You don't see the messy parts. You don't see where you drop the ball. No one focuses or highlights that. They look at their successes, and that's what they put on the forefront, but no one looks behind that and says, okay, how many hours were spent doing this? How many times did it fail? How many times did it didn't work out? Like, how many times did it just not go the way that was intended? Because no one, that's how the emphasis is, right? It's not on that. It's look how well I did. But let's talk about the messy parts too, because there's value in that.
Yeah. I mean, look, I've got this great dog, right? And family dog. And when I let the dog off the leash, it goes crazy. Like it smells and sniffs and grabs and runs. And and that's a lot how I was as a young man, right? I ran to this planet, and I just love, I mean, I've been sniffing every tree, going every blade of grass, crotches and just, look, it was all, that's like examining it.
Right.
And some of the best philosophers say life starts at 40, right? And maybe it's not, life's always happening, but at first I'm on this great adventure, just discovery. Like the first 40 years of my life was all sniffing crotches and eating pizza, right? And it's right. It was like this great experience of checking it out. And some of the things were great.
Sure.
Some of my training wasn't so great.
Sure.
I mean, I grew up in neighborhoods that were tough and rough, and the people who looked up to might not have had the best programming. Right? In fact, they didn't. They were broken. The programming that they had was not there. And some of what I've had to do as I've expanded into the different Anthonys, right? There was kind of the Anthony of youth. And then, as I started to grow and get smarter at things I wanted, and started noticing that my behaviors were really what caused the life I was having. Before that, I was all victim. Before I realized that, I was, my life was because my mother worked at Denny's. My life was because my father died when I was 7, right? My life was, I was a victim to the life I was given. And I spent a lot of time, on a pity potty about my life. And one day I realized, and it took some training, where someone said, look, I really can start to notice that I'm at cause for the life that I'm living. The
Yes.
actions and behaviors I live with
Yeah.
are creating the life that I get to have.
Choices. Yeah.
I didn't know that, right? Those
Yeah.
exactly. Those oddly, know it. Those choices that I was
Yeah.
making were causing the life I was living.
Yeah.
And when I put those two together, there lied the power. Right now, I
Mm.
wasn't victim to my upbringing. I wasn't victim to the people who trained me. Now I started becoming victim to how vulnerable am I willing to be to change. Right?
Right.
There's a lot of that stuff I carried with me. I always use the example of a Santa Claus, right? Santa Claus got that big red bag he
Yeah.
carries
Yeah.
over his shoulder,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
He walks through life and he's like, okay. And I carried a lot of crap in that bag,
Yes.
right? I carried a lot of stuff that did not serve me anymore.
Yes.
When one day I was able to open that up and look at it and go, okay,
Yeah.
let's look at the mess I'm carrying around here, right? How am I talking? How do I act?
Yes.
Spend my money? How do I drive? Right?
Yes.
What are the things? The life I was living was caused by the behaviors I was having, and as I started to look at those, and then the ones that were really great, when I started looking at my resentments, like there was a ones that are big rocks. There's a big giant rocks in the bag. Like I was mad at my dad. How could he die when I was so young? I mean, that SOB, he left me alone. And your life would be like my life if your dad died when my dad died. And the story I carried him, oh my God, the story I had about that was a 10-pound rock.
Yes.
Right. I carried that one. And there was one about I can't spell because my mother was an immigrant. Oh my God, it couldn't have been that I'd never practiced or never put the work in. No, it wasn't that. So as I started to look at those rocks and I started looking at it going, all right, what I want to do, if I could just get rid of this, let's look at this. Maybe I'm blessed because my mother worked at Denny's. Maybe knowing that she worked 3 jobs, putting zippers on pants and answering phones when she could barely speak English. And knowing that I come from that kind of blood, where a woman who had no talent in this country came here and she worked at Denny's for me to give me the life I have today. And when I reframed that stuff to look at the I was given.
When you change that perspective, Anthony, that's what I'm hearing from you.
Right? Come on, when you change that perspective, the life that we are able to live is just so much better, so much different, right? And the shift of that becoming a 10-pound rock being not something I don't have to carry anymore to actually the part that actually fuels my fire. Right today, I stand in. Amazing. I want to give that back to her. Right, the work that she put in for me. How do I give that to myself? Yes, and feel that let her show me that it was worth it. And then how do I pay that forward to the kids I have today? Yes, right. So I think therein lies some of that gift that we don't always see. Right, we don't always see that. Right, we start to as the light shines, and you're going, okay. Now I can see it better, right? And I'm not shameful about, look, I didn't hit the mark always, but as I got some awareness, as guys like you who shine light on people and bring bright light to live an audacious life, say, hey, you could try something different. That I can let go of those rocks that didn't serve me, and today I can stand in a life that is inspiring, that pulls me forward, that pulls me forward, not out of shame and guilt and fear, but out of excitement that pulls me into a future that's bright, that really gives me a chance to have a life that's, that I'm proud of.
Good on you for questioning and taking a look and opening up that bag and sort of really analyzing, because that job in itself, it's not an easy one for people, Anthony. And you've got to be really raw and honest with yourself and start to question and look at it. I just heard the story the other day and I just thought it was hilarious. There was a young woman that told a story about how her grandmother, when they had their turkey dinner for the holidays, she would take the wings off the turkey and pull them apart and cook them beside, like in the pot with the turkey, and put it in the oven. And she just thought that's the way it should be. And she did the same and kind of passed that along. And when we started to question, why do we do that? It was, well, I took the wings off because the pot was too small. Right. And so that's what we're talking about. When you can question things and get to the root and the heart of why you do what you do, or why behaviors exist, or why you make certain choices, or why you have beliefs and the stories you tell. When you start to question those things, you come to the realization, this doesn't serve me. This doesn't make sense. Or my pot is too small, right? And once you do that and go through that process, you can now choose for you what makes what the most appropriate path to go down. And that's why I love the fact that you went through that process.
It's not something that came easy. There was a couple of key moments I can look back over life and say, all right, where did that change? Right. I remember when I was about 17 years old, a friend of mine said, I'm going to take you to dinner. Anthony, I'm taking you to dinner. I mean, he was going to take
Okay.
me to a fancy restaurant in Miami. I was down in Florida at the time. He goes, I'm going to take you out to dinner. I'm like, okay. He goes, well, bring $50. I go, wait, you're taking me out to dinner? I got to bring $50.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, all right, what kind of dinner? So we walk in and he takes me out some, we stop by some hotel and we walk in the hotel. He goes, look, we're going to stop by. There's like a meeting here. I want you to go check out this meeting. It's kind of fun. And I walk in, these people are way too happy. They're like all smiling. They're all shaking hands and hi, Anthony. They put a name tag on me. I'm like, uh-oh. What's going on here? Is this like some sort of cult or something? And he walks me to a table and he goes, where's that $50? I go, oh, here's the $50. And he gives it. The lady, goes, I'm signing up for a course. I'm like, well, what's this course? He goes, it's called the Landmark Education. I go, huh, what's Landmark Education? He goes, look, it's this idea that you could look at life a little bit differently. I'm like, and that was like one of the courses that really I could see a change in, right? So, and they run this course around the world. It's in every country. It's in a lot of countries, not every country, but a lot of countries, and it's in every major city in the States. And the course taught me a couple of things, right? It taught me, number one, like it had a bunch of things about distinctions, right? Different things I could notice about life. Like one of them was what happened, and then my story about what happened. Right? So I could separate truth from story.
Yes.
Right. And that wasn't something I could do before that thing. And really see that distinction, like, okay, there's like actually what happened, like a car accident happened.
Yes.
And how 5 people could look at that story 5 different ways. And that, to them, it's as real, their stories as real as stories I carried, right? Those stories I carried about my life and who I was, they were real like gravity.
Yes.
Right. And then maybe noticing that maybe they weren't so real. Right. Like the opposite of my story could be true.
Right.
That was a light that went, right? Like in that moment, I noticed that there was something I didn't even see that. Right. That wasn't a possibility before that.
Right.
The next one was what I know. It's like what I know. Right. There's things I know.
Sure.
Things I don't know. Right. Right. There's things like I don't right. But then there's things that I don't know that I don't know. Right. And that was like when I'm like, what do you mean? What I don't know, you don't know. Like I know that I don't know brain surgery.
Right.
Right.
Sure.
But there was a whole bunch of things that I didn't even know I didn't know. And like one of them was that whole thing about my story. Like I didn't know that I didn't know that. Like I didn't know that I carried on about things like they were real. And the truth was, no, that's completely something that you didn't do. And that right there started like a whole nother realm of wow, that's another place to go. And maybe if I don't carry that story about it, or maybe the opposite of what I'm thinking could be true, that like, that story about my mother being poor, like, because I grew up with a poor family doesn't mean that I have to stay that way.
Right.
Right. There was a whole nother thing I could do with that and use that to inspire me and others in my life. So I think, you find a couple places where, I got this friend of mine, her name is Carol.
Okay.
She's a grandmother.
Okay.
And Carol said to me the other day, she goes, look, my granddaughter comes walking in and she's playing in my jewelry box and she grabs a bunch of necklaces. They're in a ball. They're all in this big ball.
Yep.
She gets necklaces and she comes over, Grandma, she's pulling on them. She's pulling on them. She's pulling on them. And she's like, Grandma, I want the necklaces. And Carol says, well, let me just take a look. And she takes a look at it and she kind of pulls a little. She goes, no, they're getting a little tighter. And she says, well, hold on a second. Let's take this. And she lays it out on a towel on her table. And she goes, she's looking at it. She goes, give me a second. I need some help.
Okay.
So she goes, I'm going to go get some outside help. And Greg goes, what do you mean outside help? She goes over and she goes digging in her drawer and she gets a magnifying glass.
Okay.
She gets a magnifying glass and she like looks at it. She stares at it and she noticed that there was one of them that was easy to pull out.
Yes.
She kind of pulls it and she gets the one out and she goes, oh, here's one. And then she goes to the second one and it's a lot harder, right? And she has to go in and she has to do some work to pull that one out.
Yeah.
Same thing with the third one. It's a lot harder to pull out. It was really tight in there tight. She works on that one for a little bit. By the time she gets to the fourth and fifth one, they start to fall apart pretty easily. Because how many times in our life do we live like that, right? That sometimes I can't see what I can't see. I'm stuck in my story.
Yes.
And I need friends like you that live in an audacious life to help me look at my life and go, all right, how could the story that I'm caring about it not be true? And having friends and relationships with people that could be that could serve me or and trust, right? Like those elders that we used to walk with.
Yes.
People that could trust, that were really out for my good, that wanted my best, but they also were willing to tell me the truth. Maybe stuff that I didn't want to hear, or maybe things I had to work on that were going to be tough to work on. But ultimately, they wanted the best for us.
They do. They do. And I think that's a good illustration, because you're right. That's kind of what life is. Like, you're pulling and you're pulling and you're pulling, and you need help, or you need another perspective, you need another opinion. Because the answer isn't always within, but the answer doesn't have to be within either. Right. There's nothing wrong with outsourcing to get some assistance and support. Right. So, I think that's a great illustration. Glad you shared that one. So I gotta ask Anthony, young Anthony growing up, what was the plan when he grew up, and what I want to do with my life? What did he, 10-year-old Anthony, what did he want to be when he grew up?
Well, it's funny how life ends up, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I was young, Anthony wanted to be Gordon Gekko, right?
Okay.
I watched a Wolf of Wall Street one too many times, and grew up in the 80s and all those guys. And getting out of high school, I wanted to be Gordon Gekko. I thought I was going to be in Wall Street. I was going to be a Wall Street broker. I got my Series 7 before I went to college, and I went to work for this guy, and he had me sit on a phone and dial for dollars all day long. That's all I did. I cold called all day long, 300 calls a day. I mean, started on the East Coast at 7 a.m. We lived, started at the East Coast, and I would end on the West Coast and just dial phone numbers all day long for this man.
Yeah.
And it was great because, one, it taught me a work ethic. Right. This guy was tough. He wouldn't let me put the phone down. He would let me just click it with my finger. He would say, you can't put the phone down. And he goes, you haven't earned lunch yet. And he would make me sit there and just dial. And, you can get to lunch at your halfway point during the day. And that was 150 calls. I mean, imagine that. You're making 100 calls, 150 calls before you got to lunch. And some people don't do that in a week today. Right. But the idea was just dial and hunt and dial. And the other part that was really amazing was that it was okay. It was okay to talk to people, that even when people hung up on you or people cussed at you or something, they weren't going to take away your birthday.
Right.
Ultimately, there was something about being able to use your voice. And I remember the first sale I made. The first sale was a $20,000 check that I got from a woman in Plano, Texas.
Okay.
And it was called a front end close. No one in our office had ever done it. Okay. I had called a woman on a cold call. And before the call was done, she was sending me a check for $20,000 for the next day. Right. Wow. No one in my office had ever done a front end close. You had called and you kind of built a relationship.
Sure.
We were selling commodities at the time. And I remember talking to her, and while I was talking to her, you learn how to build trust. Yes. And you learn how to, and imagine just being able to learn how to use your voice to create a relationship that someone will trust you enough to write a check out.
Wow.
And overnight it to you. Right now, in that, I found, wow, that's powerful.
Yes.
Right. You can really start to create relationships, and how you build trust. It doesn't take forever. You can do this. You can really do it quickly. And I thought that was a really inspiring place to be. Like, I was like, it was amazing. That day like changed my life. I could, and that was a corrupt, the stuff that really started a bunch of others. The market crashed in 87, and I ended up just not being a broker. I was so poor I couldn't even afford lunch at the time because no one wanted to buy stocks. So I started a detailing business, a car detailing business.
Sure.
And I would go office to office, and I'd knock on doors, and I wore a cute little outfit. I was clean cut, and I would just say, "Hey, I'd like to detail your car down the parking lot." I would go into office buildings, and I would detail their cars. I would find a hose to hook up to, and I'd wash their cars in the parking lot for $25, and I'd wax it for, I don't know, $50 or $60. And that was how I started. And then I got really good at it. And then I got a bunch of guys helping me do it. I would do the sales, and they would be down the parking lot washing cars. And people started getting used to it. Hey, Anthony, the car washing guy's coming. And we went a little above and beyond. We put air freshener on every one of them, and we made them smell better. We did more than they asked.
Yes.
People loved using our service. So that was great. And then people said, "Hey, do you do boats?" Because we're in Florida. Like, we started detailing boats. I'm like, sure. I had no idea how to do it. We went and detailed boats. And that led to a whole bunch of boats getting done. And that was a lot of fun. And then from there, I started another company, a painting company. And I worked my way through, I went to college then, and I was working my way through school painting houses. And I would just go, I would wear this cute little outfit, and I'd go from door to door, and I'd build trust with people. And I'd say, "Hey, I'd like to paint your roof or pressure clean your sidewalk," or, "Hey, look, we're just young college kids looking to make some money, and we're fair." And we would, that's how I worked my way through it. And then we got a commercial project, and that's how it built into the commercial world. And look, none of these things, I mean, there's no. None of them were something I planned. It just kind of connected dots going forward.
That's right.
Really, really hard, right? But looking backwards, it seems like they make sense, don't they?
Yes. Yeah, it totally does. There's an expression that says, life is an art living it forward, but a science when you look back at it. It all makes sense. Like, oh yeah, it goes. I had to do this to do this to do that. But in the moment, you were just sort of operating on gut instincts and what kind of made sense in the moment, without any real proof or validation that what you were going to do is the move you needed to make. You just went what you thought you knew, right?
That's right. That's right. Just in the moment, do the best you can do at the time. And that's really the truth, right? Like what I do today, if I can just do the best I can do today, right? And try to stay out of the places where I waste a lot of time. Right. So for me, all the companies I own, it's the same mantra, right? Every business I have is the exact same thing. It's expand and organize.
Got
Right.
you.
So you take an idea, whatever it is, you want to be a construction company, or you want to be a painter, or you want to be you want to start a computer company, or a party planner, or whatever it is. That's the idea. Now we want to expand that idea, right? And organize it, right? The whole idea is to get organized, but in between the two of those, right? Oddly, what's in between the two of those? You start a company and you get organized. What happens between the two of those?
I mean, that could be
A bunch of things, right?
it could be anything. I mean,
Right. It could be a bunch of, right. And most of the time it can be confusing as heck.
that's right. That's right.
Confusing. You don't
That's
know what
right.
to do. I mean, am I supposed to market this way? Am I supposed to
Right.
pay my bills, and who should I pay, and how much money do I
Right.
need? What am I going to do? But the truth is, it's all organized, right? When you look at it and go, all right, how am I gonna make payroll? All right, here's how you make. Well, you have no money, you have no payroll. So we had
Right.
to figure out income. Let's figure out income. How
That's
do we
right.
get income? Well, maybe we could do these couple of, just like the necklace story. Maybe there's a couple of things that are easy. Let's
Yes.
find a simple part of the business. Party planner. Maybe I just sell balloons right now, right? And as I sell balloons, then I can go. I can do greeting cards, and maybe I can do
Yes.
bouncy houses, and then maybe I could do event planning, and you can slowly start to grow, pull the other necklaces out.
Yes.
And some of them are a little harder. Some are going to be a little more complicated, and they take a little bit more organizing. But the truth is, they're just organized.
Yes.
What's funny is I make failures in that world. I
Yep.
make it feel like people are shooting at me. Right? I get so dramatic about the whole thing. I'm like, oh my God, we messed something up. Oh my God. It's like, it's almost as if the lions and tigers just bit my butt off.
Yeah.
Right? I'm like, it's not true. I just, I messed up a party, or I messed up an event,
Right.
or do something
Right.
perfect. Whatever
Right.
that is, it's just organized now, right? It's
Mm.
confusing. And you're going to learn in organizing that there's some ups and there's some downs.
Yes.
Have grace for ourselves as we go through the organizing part of it, and know that it's okay. It's okay. It's what every entrepreneur goes through. There's nobody
Yes.
nobody even the wealthy people, their father or mother gives them all the money they want.
Yep. Yep.
They even get confused and organized. They just do it in a bigger way. But ultimately expanding and organizing what a company is all about.
And again, people aren't always putting their mishaps out on display for the world to see. And so when you make one, you're going, geez, what the heck? But what you did was probably no different than 10 other people did the exact same thing. Like, you just made a mistake, right? But the piece that you said, and I absolutely love, is have grace for ourselves, right? Like that grace, and be able to forgive ourselves, and be able to say it's okay, or encourage ourselves and pat ourselves on the back when we need to. Those are all the things that we get our strength and fortification from. And so that's the real key aspect as far as I'm concerned.
Come on, just think about where we are in time, right?
Yeah.
Just think about how abundant. I mean, I go to Costco, and I go to buy. I walked out the other day. I went to the cat register, and I had 6 muffins. I know we had a bunch of other stuff, but I had 6 muffins. And the lady, like, I'm sorry, sir, we only sell those in 12s. I'm like, I needed 12 muffins, but I'm like, I had walked out. These things are as big as my face.
They are. They're huge. I know the suckers. They're great. They're great.
They're like, we only sell them in 12 packs. I'm like, you had to take 2 packs. I'm like, all right, look, I couldn't just take the one to give you half. No, sir. You have to get the whole 12. I'm like, dude, I got 12 muffins at my house, and I wonder why I have a hard time not eating 12. Right. So the abundance we have is amazing.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't feel that way. I can get caught up in scarcity. I can get caught up in fear. And the truth is, just like, smoking pot or drinking,
Right.
all of those things check me out. Well, fear does the same, right? For me, fear and frustration are just another way of checking out. When I'm growing and I'm trying to grow something, I can get all caught up in fear and frustration. I don't know what to do. And oh my God, it's overwhelming. You know,
Right.
a lot of times I'm very similar to a thermostat. If
Okay.
you look at my life, you know, from like 73 gets a little too hot. At
Yep.
68 it starts getting a little too cold. Well, my life is like that. I start getting really good. You know, life gets a little boring. I'm like, all right, I better step it up again. I go in and put some work, and I do some self growth, and I do some things. I get to
Right.
73, and I'm like, okay, now it's getting overwhelming. I
Yeah.
start to mess it up by starting acting confused and fighting with my partners
Right.
and messing up my relationships,
Yep.
and I start to sabotage them. Right,
Yes.
that high watermark that I start to sabotage. I'm like,
Yes.
how would you have it if you didn't need to do that? Like, what if it's okay to be overwhelmed? But we weren't taught that. You know, look, my mother, she
No.
did everything she could do to take all the discomfort out of my life.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Make sure I never cried. She made
That's
sure
right. That's right.
all the stuff. I wasn't bred to be uncomfortable. And today I know that being uncomfortable is okay. It's okay.
Yeah. There are things that parents have gone through the kids knew nothing about. You just had no idea about it because parents they insulated their children from that, and rightfully so. Children, right? You as a child, your job as a child to have happy memories, right? And that's what it should be. And so, but when you become that adult, you realize, oh wow, this stuff is hard. Like I never just saw this coming. Nobody told me this, right? But you just have to learn it. And so that's the process of life, I believe. And I'm glad to hear that, that was your experience.
Yeah, for sure. All of us have that. We all go through life, and in order to grow, we have to step out on the thin branches of life, right? I mean, to be an entrepreneur or to be audacious, to really step out in life and do something bold, right? Will Smith says it best: everything amazing in life is right on the other side of scaring the crap out of myself.
Yeah.
Right. I love that line. It just reminds me that, okay, I'm going to scare myself.
Yes.
It's amazing. Now, it also took me learning the life I was living was a direct result of the characteristics I led with, right? My principles I had and my character defects, right? I couldn't walk around and, today I have a $100 million construction company.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't walk around at board tables, at boardrooms and drop F-bombs.
Right.
You can't stand in the middle of a room and drop F-bombs all day long and go, well, I wonder why these companies aren't giving me the big work, right? Companies like McDonald's, you can't walk in there and you're like, all right, look, I want someone with integrity. I want someone who leads with principles. And some of those behaviors I had weren't serving what I really was up to. Right. I couldn't run a company if my finances weren't in order.
Yes.
Can't run a company when when I don't practice, when I don't show up present. Like I had to get my act together. Right. Remember the big red bag of Santa Claus crap?
Yes.
I got to pull some of those rocks out of me. I got to show up at the office with energy, enthusiasm, clarity of thought, and all of that shame, guilt, and resentments that I was carrying in that bag. I had to let go of that. So that was a whole other group of help, right? I belonged to a couple of men's groups that where men, really work on each other, right? We're a safe environment, like it was with our elders. Safe environment where people I trust can help guide me, or maybe even call me out in places where sometimes I don't want to be called out, right? I don't want to.
No.
I don't want you to tell me that I need to fix that, or you can't talk like that to people.
Right.
Right.
No, you're right.
That behavior's not serving you. You're you can't, back then I was, when early on I used to be a drinker. I really believe that taking people out to get drunk that I worked with was building relationships. I'm the fun guy to work with. You come work for me. I take customers out and get them drunk. But the truth was, you never got big deals from those customers.
No.
Right? They give you a couple little deals. Those are the guys who throw you a biscuit here and there, a scrap.
Sure.
The multi-million-dollar big deals, they don't give to the drunk they don't give to the drunk at the bar. They give those to the guys who are refrained, the people who are have character, the people who show up with integrity. Right. And that took some learning. It wasn't something I knew naturally.
No.
And it was a lot of my defenses were like, well, no, I'm great. I'm just a fun-loving guy. People love me.
No.
Great. They may love you, but they're not giving you the deals you want.
No,
That's gonna,
well, they're not loving you the way you need to be loved, right? Like, I mean, we can have that phony love, and yeah, you're a great guy, but if it's not serving you, elevating you, bringing you to another level, it's just lip service as far as I'm concerned, and that's not going to help you in the long run. And so, I'm glad that you realize that as well. Piece I got to ask about is when you're running these companies, you've got all these people that you're leading, and that they're depending on you, and you're making these decisions that whether you try something new or you take this risk. What kind of pressure is associated with that, Anthony? Like, you've got these people depending on you, and you're taking a chance on something you may not know anything about.
Oddly, pressure is a great conversation, right? Because there are times when, first of all, I love the drama, right? I love, there's something I get high off of it, right? It's a buzz.
Yeah.
I just went through this, so a couple of years ago, CDO Group, which is a big company, I stepped back as a president, and it was really tough. It was really a tough transition because you remember I never graduated college, and a lot of my significance was in developing this company, right? Like a lot of who I was, a lot of the people looked up to me like, man, he's a runner of that company. I would introduce myself as the president of CDO Group, and it became who I was.
Right.
Great. At the time it was great, but that also became limiting, right? I was going to have to work. Like all I was going to ever do was I was going to be able to do that forever. Right? If I stepped away from it, the company would fall apart. And that's not building a company. That's building a job.
Gotcha.
Right? That's really building a job that you just get paid a job. So in order for it to be a company, it has to be able to run by itself with or without me.
Right.
So as I stepped back from that, it was not easy. I would tell you, it was not the easiest thing. I had this great woman, her name was Lola Wright. She's an amazing muse of my life. She's an amazing trainer. She came in one day, she said, "Hey, all right, Larry, all right." She's a big, tall woman. She's got red hair and she's lively. When she comes in, she's really like, she's got like a character.
Yeah.
She comes in, she's like, "All right, Anthony, today we're going to lock your door." I'm like, whoa, okay, great. That's right. People won't bother me. I have an open door policy. People come to my office all day long. They come in for information, and I kind of like it because they come to look at me for information, and I get to pull the S out of my chest. And I get significance by answering everybody's question. There's some significance I get out of that. Remember, the chaos that you complain about, you're also getting some benefit for. Right? Like I complain about people coming to my office all day interrupting me, but the truth is, I'm getting some benefit out of it. Right. I'm getting some significance. Like, look, people come to me for answers.
Right.
Although maybe not a bad thing, but there's a higher way of being. There might be a bigger picture to look at. As a leader of the company, I need to be the one that has vision and really spends time thinking and in a spot where I'm really going to create a company that looks forward thinking. Now, she said to me, we're going to lock your door. I'm like, okay. And she goes, "You're only allowed to speak to these 6 people every day or every week. You get 1 hour with 6 people." I'm like, what? Wait. And I thought to myself, great. So the head of the accounting department, the head of the operations, the head of the construction department, the project management team. I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to make these lists, and they'll do all these lists, and I have all these things that I'm going to have them do. And I'll have lists for them, and they'll make sure. And the truth I found out was my meetings with them have nothing to do with things they do. Right. Because she wanted me to learn that I'd hired amazing people.
Yes.
That I kept stepping on their air hose. I'd walk out there because I had a significant need, right? I have a significance need. I needed to go out there and feel significant to show them how smart I was.
Yep.
Have you been there where you're like, let me show you how brilliant I am? And it didn't serve them and it didn't serve the company. And at first it was like standing behind that door was so hard. It was so hard.
Yes.
And I'm not going to tell you that I haven't relapsed on significance.
Yep.
I just went through like a 3-day or 3-week period where I jumped into projects. Let me show you guys. You guys had some messed up. Let me show you what I'm doing. I'll go fix it. And I put the S here. Hold on. Let me get the S out of my chest. Let me get out of it. Superman's here. I'm going to fix everything for everybody.
Yeah.
Remember, it's like getting high again. It's like I might as well be having cocktails in the office, right? Because I'm getting some significance out of that rather than guiding the people to help them help the business.
Yeah, I can relate to that so much. Being the commissioner of my basketball league. Well, prior to that, I performed all sorts of jobs in the organization, and no one knew it better than me. And so, when I get to this position where I put some really smart, talented people in place, and I was stepping on their toes all the time with what I thought I knew or what I thought I could do it better. And half the time I stepped back and realized, like, nah, that wasn't really good at all, because they could do it better than me. And so you got to check yourself. So I so relate to that, because you put people in roles, let them do what they can do, and they'll do it.
And at first, I'm not going to lie, at first, I would sit behind that door and I would just bite my lip, and then someone would mess something up. I'm like, you see, they need me out there. They need me out there. And she was like, stop. Did you mess some things up? Did you ever mess something up? I'm like, yeah, I've messed some things up. Don't worry. They're going to mess some things up just like you did. And the truth was, at first, it felt like it dipped, but then it kind of rocket shipped up. And, I tell you that there's been some hits or misses, and there's times when something will happen. And, instead of my when I say I relapsed on significance, right? I just went through this whole thing where I jumped back into projects. And I started helping them solve some, there's a market we had out in Phoenix where we had 5 or 6 of these major, a couple $1 million projects. They were, $2 to $5 million projects. There were 5 of them going on at one time. We had a group of people that were struggling, projects that weren't turning over in time. The budgets were blown. There was problems with them. And I went out there and I just started, and I'm really good at it, right? Because that's what I grew up on. And I want to show you how good I am. And maybe not even that. Truth is, I want to help them, right? There's also part of me that helps them. But the real value as a leader, right? Because that going to me personally go there and doing that is one way of doing it. But the truth is, leadership that's management.
Yes.
Management does that, right?
Yes.
I go out there and I help them do the things they're doing.
Right. Great
Great leadership has you come up with solutions. There's a billion things I could have done in that day. There's a billion. I can, great leadership pulls from the entire unit. When I have clarity of vision, when I don't carry that big stand-up bag around, right? When I don't carry that big ass bag of shame and guilt, then I have clarity of vision, right? I have intuitiveness. I have the ability to stand in a room and feel people and processes that are going on, right? From a very intuitive, almost a cellular level.
Yes.
There's a part of me that can feel the group, and I can bring ideas from the entire universe to solve the problem.
Yes.
Now, when I'm not there and I go from fear, my window of opportunity shrinks down to a little tiny one. Right? Things that I can work on, the things I can support people with become very limited, right?
Yes.
I don't have the ability to see the big ideas, or even the smaller ones that just weren't present to. I start, my field of vision gets smaller.
Yes.
I start to act small, and I start to act scared. And when I act scared, that's not good for anybody, right? Because when I'm run by fear, right, it becomes kind of negative.
Yeah.
There's a great book. It's called the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. I don't know if you ever read that one.
No, not the.
It's a great book. Great book. Michael Beckwith writes this book. It's called, and he talks about this imaginary line.
Okay.
Right. There's this line, and when I'm above the line, I'm a visionary. I'm inspiring. I'm a coach. I'm positive. I have all these great attributes that are really on the places where they're exciting. Right. When I'm below the line and I'm ruled by fear or anxiety or mistrust, I become a villain. I become a victim.
Right.
I go from those places where my behaviors are kind of negative. And the real truth is I probably live there the most.
Right.
I mean, I'm kind of naturally wired to be in that guy than I am the positive. Right. But as long as I notice it, right, before I interact with you, I might have a chance of being different.
Yeah.
Right. If I can at least notice that.
Much can be said about the awareness, right? And that's where so when you're aware of it, and you notice it, you're able to make the change. Is when you're oblivious to it, right? And it's happening, and you're maybe your headspace somewhere else, or maybe you're consumed with something that's taking your attention away from it. That's when you'll see a clear difference. So the awareness, I think, is a starting point there for sure.
That's right. It's always a lot of fun when I start to have new awarenesses, and that's why, as a leader, I need to keep looking at it, right? I can't do it myself, right? My ego has natural liar.
Yes.
Right? I've named my brain, right? The voice of my brain, I've named him. I call him Fred.
Okay.
And Fred's kind of a jerk. Right?
Okay.
He lies to me all day long. He tells me things that aren't always true.
Yep.
He wants to defend what he's always known. Right? He doesn't want to look. Fred doesn't want to look stupid. He doesn't want to get out of his way. He doesn't want to do anything. He wants to keep me on the couch eating potato chips. He doesn't want me to work out. He doesn't want me to try
Right.
something new. He wants to keep me in that space that isn't always healthy for me.
Got you.
As I start to notice that, right, as I bring in other people, and I can start to notice that that's just Fred up there being a jerk. I mean, if Fred was a human being, I'd punch him in the mouth.
I'm telling you.
I know if someone talked to me the way Fred talks to me about myself, I'd punch him in the mouth.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, Fred's just sometimes just a really, really tough guy to deal with. As I look at that and go, all right, how maybe could the opposite of what I'm thinking be true?
Yeah.
That's a great test I've been doing lately. Is how could the opposite of what I'm thinking be true? What if that person's not doing any of that stuff?
Right.
That's all what I'm making up about them, right? Because I remember I'm in fear at this now moment, right? Especially when it happens when I'm hungry, or I'm angry, or I'm lonely, or I'm tired, right? That halt. Those are places where you can count on Fred's one.
Yeah.
I'm probably in a negative point of view. I'm probably below the line, and I need to check myself.
Yes.
Right? Because it's really tough to be a great leader when I'm below the line and I'm acting from fear. It's not real inspiring to the people around us, and they're looking for a leader that's going to inspire them and help them bring something really dynamic to the table, like you do. Like look, you're audacious, and the life that you're living and the thoughts you bring are bigger and bolder, right? You have people live a big, bold life, and that's what I love about your show. Everything you're about is just about being bold and living this audacious life,
right? And
that takes practice. It's not something I'm not naturally built that way. I'm kind of naturally built to be safe and secure and make sure the dinosaurs don't eat me. And
that kind of. No, but and look, Anthony, I tell you something. I get it. Like there have been moments where I've questioned myself, and I start to look at, well, why am I doing this? And it wasn't until I was being very conscious about audaciousness that to the point where I started to look back at my life, and I've every time I had a major success or an accomplishment, it was on the strength of demonstrating audaciousness or being in some fashion, or having courage or being bold. And what that did is help them build the momentum. So now I'm at the point now where it's like, I've done it before, let's do it again. It's the same pattern, follow that, right? And that's what we need to do for ourselves to sort of get us in that it's almost like riding a bike, right? You start to ride, you build momentum, and all of a sudden you're a bike rider. And look, I learned how to ride. I was 40 years old the first time I got on a bike, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I do this thing? But let's give it a shot anyways. And so the whole idea is just start, just take that first step. You probably didn't have any idea. You were talking about leadership. You probably didn't have any idea the concept of what real leadership was until you started. You wouldn't have known until you got on that, and you mess up some. You made mistakes. You maybe fell over a little bit, but you got up and you tried again, or you continued on the journey. And I think that's really the message that we all need to be able to take with us. You fall over, you get up and you try again.
That's it. It's the things that feed my brain.
Yeah.
Tell me about that's okay. Right. There are times
things you feed Fred.
Right. If I feed Fred, right, and my friend, and I have those friends who laugh like, you messed that up, or oh my God, that shame that you can get caught up in. And there's guys who were friends like, you see, you should have stayed on the couch. Right. Who do you think? Right? I had some programming when I was a kid. The kids should be seen and not heard. Who do you think you are? Right. The meek inherit the world. I mean, there's all kinds of programming that was fed to me like, okay, stop. You can be anything. This is literally our matrix. There is you could be anything you want, no matter where you came from.
Yes.
The question is, how am I acting? Right. What are the behaviors that I'm exuding that are causing me to live the life that I'm living today? Now, once I get those, I start to look at those, I start to bring in some help.
Yes.
Look at myself. And you got to remember, I today, I read a book a week. Right. I mean, I just got done reading the Quran, which is a tough one. Right. It took me a few weeks, but I'm reading a book right now about how to fly a horse.
Okay.
It's a great book, right? And the book is all about creative thinkers and the most creative thinkers in the world. And you think to yourself, oh my God, those guys are just geniuses, and they could And the truth is, no, they're not. They just started with one thing at a time.
They took a chance.
And they built on that one thing.
Yeah.
And they built on that one thing.
Yeah.
It looks like genius when you get to the end of it, but during the process of 1,000 tries in between, right? Those are all just another step.
That's it.
And
And it's important. Sorry. It's important to also, between those 1,000 tries, when they messed up, when they fell, when they made a note of that. They took a note of that, what that mistake was, and they built on it.
right, like it's just another try.
Yeah.
It took 10,000 light bulbs to get to a light bulb with Edison. They were just another try, just another way to where it just like myself. It just was another form of Anthony that I knew I didn't want to be. It
Gotcha.
wasn't I ever knew what I wanted to be about life. It was just more about who I didn't want to be. Well, same thing happens with business. As a business leader, the only thing I'm required, like a parent,
Yes.
as parents, we complicate the crap out of the job, right? I mean, should my kid know Beethoven? Should know I should know Cantonese?
Yeah.
Should I know 7 languages? Should my kid go around the world? Should my kid dance? Or should right? Do I need 7 basketball league? I mean, what are the things I have to do to look good as a dad?
Right.
There's the job is entailed. The real job is one thing. Just don't die.
Mm.
Right. Like we made up and our egos get caught up in all the rest of it. Like the whole gig is keep the kid around, right?
Yes.
Keep it there, right? Do the best you can to keep the kid from, make it another day. And the truth is kids are pretty natural. They'll find out most of the stuff they need to know.
Sure.
And then we add on a bunch of stuff. Well, the same thing happens with a company.
That's right.
Job as a business leader is to keep it around, right? There'll be days when I barely make it.
Yes.
There are days when I want to check myself out. You were
Yep.
talking about that those rough days when you want to give up.
Yep.
But my job is just don't die.
Yeah.
Keep the business going for another day.
Yes.
Tomorrow it will be better than today.
Yes.
And I'll have a solution, right? Just count on that there's an intuitive nature to who we are as beings. And the solution I need is here. I have it. I'm present to it. If I stop acting like I don't know, I stand in being uncomfortable for a moment,
Yes.
it will come to me. The natural wisdom of the universe and who we are.
Yes.
I don't mean to sound hokey. Like sometimes people say, like, you sound hokey. Like I don't mean to sound hokey.
There's truth to it. There's truth to that, I think. There really
Real
is.
wisdom inside of each one of us. Now
Yes.
the problem is I check out, right? I check out, and it's easy to check out. And then when I check out, it could be, all those things we talked about: drugs, alcohol, fear, anxiety, frustration. All those are just emotional checkouts.
Yes.
I just notice that about myself. Like, okay, I don't have to. I can be okay with being frustrated. It's okay, and it'll be okay. And what we're gonna do next is we're just gonna show up.
Yes.
I was I'll give you one last story. I had a guy called me the other day, right? And he was working on a project down in Texas, and
Yep.
the inspector was there and said, "Man, the entrance to the project, which is a long driveway, along a street."
Okay.
He comes in and goes, "It's off by 16 inches. You have to tear the whole thing up and move it over." I mean,
Okay.
but hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean,
Wow.
and the guy's panicking.
Right.
He's panicking. He didn't go his boss or his boss's boss. He calls me up and goes, "I went right to you because look, this $100,000 and the company needs it. You got to solve this problem. You got to fix the problem. And I
Right.
need your help. The guy's here right now. He's telling me I have to tear this up. We're on city property. We can't have it there. It has to be torn up by tomorrow morning." And he's panicking. And
Right.
I want to help. So I immediately get the plans out and I lay them on the table and I'm sitting there and I'm looking at him and I can't come up with a solution. Like I looked at it for an hour and now I'm 2
Right.
hours into it. I'm
Right.
3 hours into it and I don't have a solution. And those voices in my brain, Fred
Yeah.
and his band of misfits up there, they're in my brain and they're working. Maybe
Yeah.
you're too old. Maybe your day has come. Maybe you're just, someone else should take over. And
Yeah.
this 100,000 going to take you out. That's going to take you out of business.
Yeah.
These are mistakes you can't make. And the truth was, I just stayed there. It took, 4 or 5 hours, and 5 hours into it. I mean, that's a lot of focus. I'm looking at these plans.
Yes.
I had to go pull some other drawings. I had to pull some,
Yes.
and we looked at it together. And then we noticed this small little line that pointed to an arrow, that pointed to an easement. And we had moved over and been given an easement on a plot of survey that wasn't transferred over to the drawings.
Okay.
But in the plot of survey, it shows that we had the 16-inch easement.
Right.
And that was, once we found that, the lights
Right.
came on and all of it unwound.
Right.
And the truth was, you just had to stay in the moment,
Stay.
right? And we could have easily checked out. I mean, 5 hours of looking at a set of plans.
Yeah.
And all those voices and Fred and his band of band of misfits are up there trying to work me.
Yeah.
Right? he wanted to check me out. He was like, "Stop! You're done. You can't do it.
Yeah.
You're useless. You're too old now." Right, right. That all that misfit stuff is just nonsense.
Yes.
And
Yes.
somewhere in there we found it, and
Amazing.
it was a joy. So
Stay in the moment. I love
stay
it.
there.
I love it. Anthony, one last thing. So, look,
Yeah.
I've had a blast. This is just such a great time. And I think your story is a fantastic one, an important one. And the message is one I'm glad my audience is really going to appreciate. But I want to talk about you hitting the big screen here. You're a television star, you and your family on Family Style. I'm sure Fred and his band of misfits love that one, right? Journeying into a new realm you know nothing about. Let's talk about that.
So TV is not something I ever thought I would be doing, right? I never thought I would be working on. We're working on Family Style, right?
Yep.
So the whole idea behind Family Style was that it's this grand adventure, right? The whole idea behind it was that when I turned 50, I wanted to go around the world.
Okay.
And I turned 50 and life was just too busy. I couldn't make it around the world. And my wife was like, you look like a kid who lost his puppy. Right. And at 51, she planned me this birthday party where she sent me, my sons, and we went up to the woods, and we did a whole like boys weekend, right? A little bit of this, a little bit of that, we raced cars, and we had this whole fun weekend. And when I came back to the house, we walked back in, it was a big surprise party. Okay. And I was like, oh wow, surprise. And she had this massive map up on the wall, and on the wall it said trip around the world. And everybody got a bunch of flags, and they could put the flags in anything, in any place they wanted to. And we kind of planned this trip around the world. Wow. So we started with Hong Kong, then we went to Vietnam, we went to Thailand, and then we went to India. Okay. And then we went to Cape Town, then we went to Johannesburg for safari, then we went to Athens, then we went to London, then we went all the way over to Lima, and then we went to Cusco, which is in Peru, and then we went to Machu Picchu, and then back to Chicago. So this big trip around the world, and we booked it. Now here, what would you say that cost?
Probably a whole family,
just for tickets, just for airline tickets.
Airlines, 100,000.
No, so per person was $6,500.
Oh,
$6,700 per person. That's it. Round trip tickets.
Really?
65. Or go to airtricks.com. Airtricks.com. Wow. And just put them in there. And they're a company who really specializes and gets you one-way tickets. And I booked it for my family. And then we thought, okay, maybe we'll take my parents, my mother and my wife's mother. And it grew, and that grew. And all of a sudden it was 18 family members. And imagine taking 18 family members around the world. I'm like, okay.
That's it. That's it.
Now we planned that, and I use American Express, so I got a bunch of hotel rooms and a bunch of stuff on points, and we worked on that. And then we're like, just because we can afford to go, we should try to find something good to do to teach our kids some good stuff. So we planned a little bit of support work or charity work in every country we did.
Amazing.
So we started with in Hong Kong, we did something called there was two great charities. The first one we did was we went to Hong Kong cleanup. Hong Kong is faced with this massive pollution problem. It's a little tiny island, right? Yeah. And they're running out of space to put their garbage. And we went and cleaned an island, and it was kind of fun. Like we went off to this little island with this company called this group of NGO nonprofit groups, and they said, "Here, we got this island we want to go clean up." And they had some other tourists that went with us, and we got to meet some people. We went off to this little island we never would have gone to if we were just on vacation in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
We probably gone to some high rises, ate some street food, bought some suits or something because all the great shopping there. But now we go off to this little island, and we clean an island, and we learned all about cleaning microplastics and pollutions, and my kids got to learn, and we split up in some groups, and we had a little competition, and we cleaned it up, and that was part of it. So then the next one we did was cardboard grannies. In Hong Kong at 65 you have to retire, so there's this whole group of people who work the markets, who pick up cardboard and do recycling, and we got to spend some time with them. And as we planned a vacation, right, and we had a charity in every location we did, it became kind of fun, right? My kids got involved, and they got part of doing it. And there were some great other ones. Like in Thailand, we did a thing called Paper Rangers, right? And this is a guy, Mr. P. His name is Mr. P. And if you go to paperrangers.org, you can see where he takes. So here, next to every single printer you have, what's right next to the printer?
The printer.
Yeah, all the mistakes you made, right?
Oh, the bin there, right?
Yeah, the bin with all the paper
Yeah,
that's right
yeah,
there, right? So it's like some of you printed the wrong
yeah,
side,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
did
You
the
throw
wrong
in the yeah,
thing,
yeah,
right? There's a whole stack of them. So
yeah.
this Mr. P, as a college kid, said, "I got a better idea. I'm going to take all of those." And he takes them and he folds them the backwards way. So he puts the bad part in the middle, and he takes the white part and he stacks 20 or 30 of them together, and he puts them together and he sews a little cover on it, and he makes little books that he gives to the poor, right? People who can't afford it, right?
Wow.
Just it was like this simple little idea that he just made these little books out of just out of printer
Yeah,
recycling paper,
yeah, yeah.
and we went with him. We learned how to do that, and now we've taken it back to the States, and now we do it in schools, and kids just learn.
Amazing.
You don't have to be a genius. It's just one silly idea, like taking the recycled paper next to a printer, and you too can be a paper ranger too. And he does, it's kind of fun, just fun making the books, and you have some competitions, and you write nice things on them, and they bring them
I
to
love
old
it.
folks' homes, and people use them for journals, and it's kind of a nice little way for kids to get involved in recycling. It's just a great way to do it. So we would have never done any of that
Yeah,
had my kids not found this guy. And so the kids raised money before we left for vacation,
yeah.
and did bake sales and garage. And they sold anything that was in my house that was not melted down. They were out there selling my old golf clubs, and they were selling, I mean, tires.
Dad won't
in
need
the
this
garage.
anymore.
And they're like, "Dad, you don't need this, right?" I'm like, "Wait, that's my charger for my phone. Give me that back." No, they're selling anything with a tied. And
Uh,
this guy calls me up as my brother-in-law's friend, and his name is Jim. He works in Hollywood. He was a producer on the Matrix. He was a producer for Black Sail and a bunch of other
okay.
great shows. And he calls me and goes, "Look, I want to film this with you." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I'm a TV producer." And he goes, "I hate Hollywood." He goes, "Look, Hollywood's I move 13 trucks a week, a day, just to film one episode of each one of these. And it's
Yeah.
just, I'm like, the guy might pull out a reflector for 15 minutes
Right.
and move a whole truck for that one reflector." And he goes, "I want to show Hollywood I can do this all on handhelds, on handheld equipment, like iPhones." I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah.
"You're just holding an iPhone?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "By the way, I also have the best film guys in the country. They're my friends. If we can get them, if you say we can do this, I'll inspire them to come do it with you, and they'll do it at cost."
Wow.
And so then now all of a sudden we have a film crew, and now they produce. And he also has great editor friends, and together they produced what's called Family Style. So it's 8 countries, 5 continents. And during that, our family kind of learns a little bit more about each other. And when you travel, you have some good days, you have some bad
Sure.
days. There's some days when you act a fool, and some days when you're acting tired. And imagine, so we do this, and we have some great. We swam with sharks. We got to go to Nelson Mandela's prison. We got to go to we were up in the mountains where our Machu Picchu is. We were on Abbey Road in London, where we got to see where the Beatles walked to do their album cover. They're just silly things that we probably wouldn't have done, but it was inspiring. The whole idea is that, what if you went on vacation, and then not only that, we also added in a religion. So every country we'd go to, we'd learn about their major religion,
Okay.
and that was something like really fun.
Amazing.
Like in India, we were with Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs. That was a fun one. Like, imagine the wealthiest of our community, right? The wealthiest people. The Sikhs are just amazing religion,
Yes.
and the people who wear the turbans,
Yes.
and they look so much different. They have beards and turbans, and they look so much different than we do. And you probably would write them off because they're so different than we are. But we went into their temple, and we got to see their people and their music.
Yes.
And the wealthiest of the community every day feed the poorest of the community.
Wow.
And so my family's invited for lunch, and they feed 2,000 or 3,000 people per lunch and breakfast. They have 2 meals a day, and they feed people, or maybe it's a lunch and dinner, and they feed people, and you give whatever donation you can give.
Right.
And we ate on the ground, and at first we were a little scared, like, all right, my kids are like, "Dad,
Sure.
we're gonna eat this," and it was amazing,
Man.
right? And to be with people who we didn't know, who just gave us this gift of being with them. So
Yes.
it was quite enjoyable. And oddly, I gotta tell you, I think as we break through those places, and really when we meet people around the world and start to realize they look so much different than we are. I mean, those people they're tall and
Yep.
they're bearded, and have turbans on.
Yep.
But the truth was, every man I met just wanted better for their family. right? They're just trying hard for their kids,
Yes.
right? They're trying to be better fathers than they grew up. They're trying to be
Yes.
trying to be better dads. And every
Amazing.
woman I met was the same thing about being a mother, better
Yes.
mother. And I don't think I've ever really met anybody who's really malevolent. I've met people who are scared, who act scared.
Sure.
We see them all the time when I'm afraid that I'm going to be broke or afraid someone's going to take something. I may act in a scared way and do foolish things, but the truth is, I'm just trying to, just trying to get by.
Best. Yeah. Make the best of what you have.
Oh.
The best of what you. That's amazing. I love. So love forget the TV show piece of it, just the trip itself. I mean, the TV show just adds another element to it, which is really cool and exciting. But together as a family, I'm a big family guy, and so learning about each other in that fashion, just you and you alone, and exploring the world together, experiencing things at the same time. They're all new and exciting, and so that's really, really wonderful. So congratulations on that alone. Again, the television aspect of that just makes it really cool, right? And now makes it memorable because everything is captured. But congratulations on the whole experience and being able to share with, especially for your children, provide that type of experience. And so much can be said about that, Anthony. Good job.
Lots of fun. It's the audacious life that you talk about all the time, and just be inspired to step into the world boldly, right? And be. It's okay to act, to be a little fool. I mean, sometimes that's the scariest part. Is I feel like a fool when I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
that's okay. It's okay, right? You talk about being bold and living an audacious life. It's okay not to have all the answers all the time. So thank you for being so inspiring in the work you do. And I'm really grateful that you've invited me to be on the show, and I feel honored to be a guest here today.
Thank you. Thank you. This has been such an awesome time, Anthony. I tell you, it's been great, and loving everything that you've done. I think your story is a fabulous one, and how you live your life, and the difference and impact you make, not just for your family, but all those you come in contact with. So congratulations. For listeners who want to learn more about you or check you out, or even family style, because they're going to want to know, we just plugged it, right? We just put it out there.
So it's coming out this fall, and we're working real hard on the networks. I mean, Hollywood's a whole nother bag of tricks I've got to learn.
Yes.
So we're getting all that and contracts all put together, and hopefully, if the stars align, we're heading down the right path. But if people want to find me, the best way to find me is on LinkedIn. Anthony@CDO Group is my email address. Anthony@CDO Group is my email address, or you can find me on LinkedIn at Anthony Amunategui, AMUNATEGUI. And oddly, I just want to say thanks for letting me. I mean, I really am honored to be on your show.
You.
Your work is inspiring. You inspire me every day, and I'm grateful for being here.
Thank you. Much appreciated, Anthony. We'll see you soon. Take care.
Thank you, brother. Thanks.
Back we are here on the podcast. I'm still out here on that construction site. And listen, I got to send my thanks and appreciation to Anthony for stopping by, being here and sharing his insights. Again, so thank you, my friend, for making the time and space for me. And I can't wait to check out your television show with your family. It looks like it was a lot of fun, and I'd love to check that out. When I think back to my conversation with Anthony, I really appreciated so much of what he had to say. But if there's just one thing that I would take from my chat with him, it would have to be this. There's no doubt that all successful businesses start off first with that one brilliant idea. After all, in today's fiercely competitive environment, innovation is the ammunition entrepreneurs need to stand out in this crowded, busy market space. But coming up with that one great money-making idea is only the first part. The next step involves figuring out what to do next now that you've got it. Now, how do you expand on your idea is really the question, and make it into a worthwhile venture that's lucrative, impactful, and a difference maker for others. As you start to go through the process and the business planning and expand on your idea, it's important that you're very clear on what you want to do, how you'll do it, and what resources you'll need to get there. The next step of the matter is organizing all the key elements needed and making sure that they're in place to help you move forward. whether it's in construction, business, or in life, it's all about expanding and organizing. We've come to the end of another edition of the Audacious Living Podcast, and as always, I send my thanks to our audacious, amazing listeners. Thank you for your tremendous ongoing support. It's so much appreciated, and thank you. Until next time, stay safe, be kind, show love to one another, and be audacious.
You've been listening to the Audacious Living Podcast, hosted by Audley Stevenson. If you enjoyed what you heard, be sure to like, subscribe, and share. Until next time, be audacious.